Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about our work zeta-mixup, richer, more realistic mixing of multiple images. I'm Kumar Abhishek, a PhD student in the Medical Image Analysis Lab at Simon Fraser University in Canada, and this is joint work with Dr. Colin Brown and Professor Kassan Hamarni. We begin by taking a look at the mix-up data augmentation method, which generates synthetic samples using convex combinations of images or training samples and linear interpolations of their labels using a hyperparameter lambda. The key assumption of mix-up is that a model should behave linearly between a pair of training samples, even if the distance between them is large. This, however, presents with some problems where mix-up can sample data off the manifold, causing an inflated intrinsic dimensionality estimate. And it can also generate samples which have incorrect labels. For example, as we can see here in the outputs of this mix-up, the outputs do not respect the class boundaries of the red and blue classes. Similarly, with this 3D distribution, the outputs of mix-up denoted by blue points are off the data manifold. The outputs of mix-up also have a lower degree of realism and present with ghosting artifacts, as they can be seen here. And the labels of these mix-up outputs, the soft labels, can often contain incorrect soft labels. For example, these images look like the digit 8, but their soft labels do not have the class 8 in them. Similar problems are observed when we apply mix-up to medical images. Here with skin lesion images, we see that the mix-up outputs have a low degree of realism and have ghosting artifacts, as we can see here. We argue that we should only synthesize samples with a high confidence of realism and that a model should only behave linearly near the training samples. As such, our goal for a better augmentation method should be that the outputs are real and they are close to the original training samples, that the outputs are diverse and that we explore the input space, and the output should have rich labels which incorporate information from multiple classes. Similarly, the output should come with valid probabilistic labels, and the augmentation method should be computationally efficient. Our proposed method synthesizes new samples using a convex combinations of n original samples with weights Wi denoting the weights assigned to the original samples. We choose the weights to satisfy the criteria mentioned above using the terms of a p-series. So given n training samples, we generate an n by n permutation matrix, which results in a randomized order of the samples. And the weights assigned to these samples are the normalized terms of a p-series, where the normalization constant c is the n-truncated Riemann zeta function with the hyperparameter gamma. And therefore, we call our method the zeta-mixup augmentation method. Zeta-mixup has some interesting properties where for a single value of gamma, we can generate n factorial possible permutations and therefore n factorial new samples. Similarly, for all values of gamma greater than a certain threshold, the weight assigned to one sample dominates all other weights. And finally, zeta-mixup is a generalization of mixup. And in fact, for n equal to 2 and a certain value of gamma, zeta-mixup simplifies to mixup. Unlike mixup, which can only mix between two samples, zeta-mixup can interpolate and generate convex combinations of n samples. As we can see here, we can mix between 4 or 8 samples. The outputs of zeta-mixup yield higher realism and diversity, and we can control the behavior to be between vanilla-like and mixup-like by interpolating using the value of gamma. In particular, if we look at one example of a zeta-mixup output and a mixup output, we see that the class boundaries between the red and the blue classes are better preserved with zeta-mixup as compared to mixup, where they are all mixed up. Similar trend is observed when we look at 3D synthetic data distributed around a spiral manifold. And we can see that the outputs of zeta-mixup pink conform to the original data manifold better than mixup outputs. The outputs of zeta-mixup also look more real and have richer and correct labels. As you can see, they incorporate labels from multiple classes and correspond to the correct label of the generated image. Finally, zeta-mixup better preserves the intrinsic dimensionality of the datasets as evaluated on CIFAR 10 and CIFAR 100 datasets using 8 and 128 nearest neighbors. The pink line denoting the intrinsic dimensionality obtained using zeta-mixup is lower compared to empirical risk minimization, the black line, and mix-up, the blue line. Finally, zeta-mixup achieves better classification performance on natural image datasets and medical or skin lesion image datasets as compared to ERM and mixup. And it can also be combined with other augmentation methods such as cut mix to improve the performance further. Our code is available on GitHub. Thank you for listening.